Hell in the Land of the Morning Calm, Chapter 16, The Escape. I suppose the communists had decided to move us to another camp. For whatever reason, we were being taken around a steep mountain on a very narrow road which looked more like an ox cart path. We were being moved at night, I suppose to keep us from being spotted by American planes. There was a man directly in front of me who had been hit 3 times in his right leg. The guards would not allow you to help anyone. He was very weak and stumbled and fell. I grabbed him under his arms and jerked him back up on his feet. He went on a few more yards and fell again. I managed to get him up again and remembered saying to myself, if he goes down again, they will get him. The thought had barely entered my mind when one of the guards moved right up beside him. Sure enough, he went about 20 more yards and fell again. When he fell, the guard swung his rifle at his head. In an instant, I kicked the guard as hard as I could, ran, and dove over the side of the mountain. What I didn't realize was that it was almost straight down for hundreds of feet. The fall was enough to have killed me. It was almost like going over a cliff. I remember tumbling head over heels down the side of that steep mountain. There were little scrub bushes sticking out that I could have grabbed, but I didn't even try because the communists were already shooting at me. I could hear the bullets hitting the rocks around me. I fell into a very narrow ravine where 2 mountains came together. It looked as if over the centuries there had been a river running through there. In fact, there might still have been one, but it was frozen over. The temperature was somewhere between 20 and 30 below zero. The temperature was somewhere, oh wait, excuse me. The wind was blowing and I didn't have on half enough clothes. I was wearing one of the old communist Chinese quilted uniforms. They had taken our other clothes from us. When I went over the side of that mountain, the other men, all the way down the line, began to break away, diving over the side too. When I hit the bottom, a body hit on top of me, then another and another and another until I was completely covered with bodies. The communists stood up there and poured rifle and machine gun fire down into this stack of bodies for what seemed to be an eternity. Fellows, I whispered, don't move. Be still. It's the only chance we have if they leave us for dead. I remember lying there under that pile of bodies. I could feel the breathing, but none of them tried to move or get out from the pile. Then I remember the feeling of anguish that swept over me when all of a sudden I realized I could no longer hear any breathing. I couldn't feel any movement either, and I realized they were all dead. I was all alone, but I didn't want to move. I was afraid the enemy had left somebody behind to see if there was any movement, if there were any of us still alive. I lay there for a long time. I don't like to talk about it, but I want to tell what a tremendous miracle God did. I know this sounds hideous, but when I crawled out from under that pile of bodies, I was soaked with blood. I had a lot of cuts all over my body, but as far as I know, the cuts were from the rocks, because I don't think any of the bullets ever hit me. It wasn't my blood I was soaked in, you see. These men were bleeding, and their blood had ran all over my body. My hair was full of blood, my clothes were soaking wet with blood, and my shoes were full of blood. In 20 to 30 below zero weather, you just can't live if you are soaking wet. I checked through the bodies desperately, hoping to find just one of them alive, but they were all dead. I was in such a state of bewilderment, I didn't know what to do, and I just fell on my knees. Lord, what am I to do? I can't even think. I'm all alone. He spoke to me just as plain as if it were someone beside me. Son, he said, when did I leave you? All right, Lord, but I don't know what to do. So I just began to walk. I had no contact with the underground. There was no one to help me. I had no plan of action when I went over that mountain. It was God's plan. It was cloudy, so I couldn't see the stars, and I had no way of knowing what direction to go. I could have been traveling in a circle and not known the difference. A big part of the time, I was not even conscious of trying to go in any particular direction. I was just walking. I traveled at night and hid in the daytime, staying in the mountains away from the roads. If I could spot a main road in the distance, I would try to follow it, keeping it in sight and trying to go in the general direction it was going while keeping out of sight myself. I lived off raw rice and cabbage stalks. A couple of times I was able to catch a rabbit. Water was no problem because there was plenty of snow and ice everywhere. I had a lot of close calls. I remember one time lying under some nice straw when a patrol came close enough to me that I could have reached out and touched the men. I held my breath while they went by so there would be no movement. What bothered me most at night were the dogs. They would bark, and I was afraid they would give me away. End of chapter 16.